Good evening, Gaurav. Great to have you with us and welcome again. To all of you, I think we have with us Gaurav Shisodia, who is the country manager India for Payoneer, with us to chat with us on the future of business banking. So before we get to the topic, Gaurav, I thought as a context to the whole topic, I think today is all about transformation, right? I mean, with the advent of technology, newer dimensions that we see across every day, its adoption in all walks of life, this seems to be the key in every business that we kind of see. Banking, I think, would be no different and is very integral to every business and every one of us, and kind of the foundation of everything that gets built, moves, and grows. Now, driving bold transformation in any organization is not going to be easy, but again, it's inevitable. And as organizations are moving today to hybrid and integrated solutions to address these challenges and maximize the opportunities, I think organizations have to make it a way of life. And I think banking is no very different. Now, as we see to be very successful and to sustain all this, a bank of the future will need to embrace all of this and the emerging technology and remain flexible as it adopts this to the changing needs, models, etc. And of course, as it keeps customers as the center of gravity of its business. Now, with all this around us, maybe we'll kind of spend some time with Gaurav to kind of seek his inputs on some of how the banking industry is moving in this space. But before that, Gaurav, it'd be great if you could quickly take a minute and talk to us about what's your take on this topic, what does Payoneer do, and what do you do in this space?
Fantastic. First of all, thank you so much, Srikanth, and thanks, NASCOM, for giving us this opportunity. I'll not take too much of time. My name is Gaurav. I lead Payoneer for India. We are a B2B cross-border payment company. We recently got listed on NASDAQ this year. We've been in this business for over 20 years now. Very clearly, what we are here for is to support SMBs in their payment needs. We provide some state-of-the-art products like virtual collection accounts, ability to collect through debit card, credit card, plus e-check. What we believe in is giving corporate or level kind of products and services to SMBs, and that's been our motto. Very clearly, we want to bring in those efficiencies and help our SMB brothers to grow faster. That's the high level motto we have. It's a very interesting topic. How banks will evolve. My only statement to this is change is constant. The process has started, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. No, I can't agree more with you on this. Absolutely. And good to know that you're doing so much in the SMB space, which is, I think, more the need of the hour, given that SMB is the segment that is growing the fastest growing now. Absolutely. So a couple of thoughts, and maybe Gaurav, I'll get started with this. I'm saying that, SME ecosystem itself is changing very rapidly, and more so in today's world, right? In the post-COVID world, last 20 months, I think things have really changed. Now with us, not only has the industry kind of learned to hedge a lot of things, I mean, they've kind of, also built in a lot of multiple expertise. They are kind of expanding their base in becoming more global, right? I mean, they want to increase their reach, their presence, and so on. So what has been your experience in this space as you keep working with global SMEs?
Sure. So before I give my comment on it, let's look at some of the global numbers. If you look at global trade in 2021, it was $21 trillion. It's a 25% jump from 2020. While people will say 2020 wasn't a great year, if I compare it to 2019, it's still a 13% jump. So overall, business is good, business is growing. We need to look deeper into which segments are growing really fast. And that's where, if you look at e-commerce, and when I talk about e-commerce, if you look at US retail, e-commerce share in US retail grew from 14% to 27% in this COVID time. This hasn't happened in last 20 years. This is a jump which you don't see in such a large market. So very clearly, you're seeing certain segments which are growing way faster than the other segments. If you look at freelancers as a segment, they contribute $1.3 trillion to US economy. And this segment has been growing at a super fast pace. And why this is important? Because 40% of the total talent comes from India. Uh, uh, we recently came out with freelancer report, and what we saw was 36% of the freelancers saying that last 2 years they've got more business. Very clearly positive trends on some of these new age industries, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's IT outsourcing, whether it's freelancers, and we see a very similar trend in our portfolio, not only in India but across the world. With when I talk about India, if you look at it, there has been a lot of government initiatives to support it. There is a lot of aspiration to take exports to new heights by the Prime Minister, honorary Prime Minister Mr. Modi. So we are seeing a lot of government support. We are seeing a lot of enthusiasm in SMBs and digitization. Overall, a positive trend. What we see in the last 2 years, and it's actually accelerated the growth for us and for SMBs.
Sure. Thank you, Gaurav. I think that's very helpful. In fact, I think again, even the stats around prove us this, right? Even the recently launched strategic review report that NASCOM did just about a couple of weeks ago talked about the industry growing at about 15.5%, exports. Talking about exports alone going at about 17.2%. I mean, that's really kind of, very heartwarming to see. Well, you talked about a little about the past, etc. here. Now, one constant struggle I think SMEs or Indian SMEs in that sense have faced is a lot about legacy, right? Legacy banking system, legacy processes and things like that. Be it whatever, right? Be it credit, be it payment, be it access to newer credit. It's all been challenging because I guess the processes have always been aligned to one shoe fits all, which probably is not the case for SMEs, right? If all the processes are all aligned to keeping a large company in mind, keeping a large enterprise in mind, obviously it doesn't work with SMEs because some of them are young, some of them don't have the collaterals, and so on. So how do you think this game is going to change with the fintech players like you coming in, and how will it eventually democratize, getting into the banking system for these people?
But first of all, I think very rightly said, while if you're a corporate, you're going to get the best deal, you're going to get the best service, you're going to get the most customized deal from the banks. And debatable rightly or wrongly so. But if you look at the numbers, pure play numbers, right? If there are 63 million SMBs in the market, contributing to close to 40% of the GDP, right? So what banks typically do and you rightly said, right? They try to force fit the same kind of a product and a solution to an SMB, which doesn't work. And you add a layer of complication to that by some of the new segments, right? So freelancing and e-commerce and cross-border e-commerce. Banks typically don't even understand them so well that they still use the old methods of underwrite some of these customers. So it becomes even more complicated. Very clearly, it's an opportunity for fintechs, right? So if you look at what fintechs are doing these days, they're clearly reaching out to, they're increasing the distribution or the reach. So you'll see a lot of fintechs focusing on unbanked population. They're focusing more on tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 of the world where SMBs are there, where banks typically are not that competitive. These guys never saw that kind of service and products. So very clearly we see SMBs really benefiting from that. The other aspect, what you're looking at is use of AIs and MIs in a particular segment. And I spoke about e-commerce, right? So e-commerce is a new phenomenon. If you're going to underwrite an e-commerce customer on the basis of balance sheet and P&L without collateral, he's not gonna get much of a funding from a bank. And keeping in mind the segment is growing faster than the retail sales in most of the countries, it's a right segment to bet on. So that's where you see a lot of fintechs are actually building out models to able to fund some of them. So the lending itself in SMB is growing. That itself is a huge booster to SMB's economy is what we feel. Last but not the least is what fintechs are also doing is they are building in the efficiency and speed.
Mhm.
UPI is a great example of it.
Yeah.
5 years down the line, the payments were so difficult to make. Now you go to a chai wala and you will see a QR code and a UPI transaction can be done. I'll take an example of Payoneer, right? So if you're if an SMB and you go to a bank for $1,000 transaction, $25 Swift cost, you don't
Mm.
have an RM, you'll get the worst of the rates. What we do is we ensure that we can able to provide corporate level service qualities and rates to these customers. And it's not only us; it's multiple players like us who are building driving efficiencies in various segments of banking. They, again, banks have. It's not that the banks have not started working on it. They're working with a lot of fintechs and partnering with fintechs and trying to compete or collaborate with fintech at this point of time, and that's how the future is.
Mm, mm, mm. True, very true. Absolutely, can't agree more on this. Very true. So you talked about e-commerce, and I think this whole e-commerce growth is all over the place, right? I mean, India is no exception to the story. And if you look at the same old recent report that I was talking about, I think from 57 to 79 billion has been the growth. I mean, it's a huge
So,
growth right there too, even in India. And probably yes, I think things like pandemic may have accelerated this, or or probably even people's wanting to kind of move more digital also could have accelerated, but eventually the result is that people have taken to it like a fish to water.
I
Absolutely.
think it's a forcing function. It's a blessing indeed, I
Absolutely.
think, from shape and form, if I can say that.
But nobody wants to be left behind, right? Nobody wants to be left behind. So let me come back a little and probably uh, we've talked about the industry, the market, the way people kind of reacted to the situation. Maybe I won't kind of come back and ask you, uh, with you yourself having been in this industry, in the banking industry, I mean, you have had a very illustrious career here in this space for close to 2 decades now. How are you seeing the whole paradigm shift in making it better for SMEs? Because see, I mean, we talked about the earlier case where everything is a force fed. Now we're talking about how do we kind of make it easier for SMEs. So how do you think this whole shift is going to happen probably in the next few years?
Sure, sure. So the way I see it, and again, I'm going back to banks. Banks are mammoth. Look at top three, four banks, the kind of distribution they have, the kind of number of accounts they have. They work with large corporates across the globe. So you see them as a center of power when it comes to finance. What's happening now is at two, three different places, right? So you see banks being challenged by fintechs and
Yes.
very clearly trying to build in the efficiencies. Banks are forced to change. Uh,
Yes.
and banks being big is also their strength as at the same time their weakness. So they are a little slower, and hence you see a lot of collaborations with fintech. So you will see that trend, and you will see a lot of customized products coming for SMBs and net again for SMBs.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it. The second important aspect of it, what we believe is again something which I touched upon earlier also. Uh, there are new segments coming in. There are new ways of underwriting customers coming, and that use of machine learning, use of AI will help you serve the population which was never served uh, by banks in the past. Because again, at a per unit level, it was not profitable. But
Yes.
that's gonna change. Uh,
Mhm.
I was speaking to one of the large banks who made a statement and is stuck in my mind. That bank said the way they used to treat salaries account 20 years ago, they're gonna treat freelancer segment like that, because that's where the new growth will come in. So
Yes.
we will see a lot of collaboration. We will see a lot of evangelization. We will see banks changing, banks competing. Net, what we believe it's a golden era for SMBs, because they will be spoiled for choice in next few years.
That's really good to hear. That's really good to hear. Good. Thank you. Tell me then, from a stepping back, you talked about technology, you talked about use of intelligence, artificial intelligence, things like that, right? This only means that uh, the concept of people using more of this technology in kind of personalizing the offering to the end customer is going to change, right? We talked about hyper personalization earlier. Now people are talking of micro personalization. With all this coming in, I'm sure there's also going to be an element of open banking coming into play in all this, right? Eventually at some stage. So how do you see this helping the SMEs in that sense? And what do you think, or what is going to be your vision on open banking probably a few years from now?
Sure. So first of all, for layman's term, open banking is nothing but bank agreeing to share that data with third party, obviously subject to consent. So from a concept perspective, if bank is able to share data with third parties / fintechs can then develop products on them over a period of time. And we're seeing, while open banking is not completely there in India as of now, banks obviously are resistant to it because data is power, data is money, data is on the basis of which you create products. We are seeing some early signs, and the good thing is what we are seeing a lot of support from RBI and government on that. So you see RBI coming out with a policy on aggregator accounts wherein banks can provide virtual collection accounts, and the platforms can then create reconciliation products, lending products on the basis of that. So early signs, we are seeing some changes. Will open banking happen completely is anybody's guess, because it's like opening your book and telling your rival everything about your customer. But we will. The way I see it is there'll be a lot of collaboration with the partner which you trust and which you share some kind of a commercial deals, so that you can then build on products which can really help SMEs. Again, clearly banks have realized that it's important for them to work with some of these players. Otherwise it's going to be tough, because what fintechs are doing is that taking each and every aspect of banking, for example, insurance or lending or accounts or cross-border payments, and really building efficiencies. If you don't do that, you're going to be redundant. One great example of what we are working with banks globally is we have an API integration with banks, where bank once integrate with us is able to get all the capabilities. The customer of the bank gets all the capabilities of our product. And imagine a large bank which can provide virtual collection accounts to SMBs in USD, in Euro, in GBP. So lots of things can happen. This is just an example, one of the examples. But eventually, you will see lot of collective efforts to build products for SMBs.
Okay, thank you. But Gaurav, a side point to this. See, typically, why would you want to do open banking? It's only when you want to kind of give a portfolio of services to your existing customer, right? You want to open it up. But today, don't you see that most banks are already doing that by lots of types that they already have with a lot of people? And then do you still think that open banking will be necessitated?
So what you see, as I said, the process has started. Is it there yet? The answer is no. If I go to a bank and tell them that, guess what, I want through an integration, I want to touch your core banking platform. Not a single bank will agree to that, right?
Answer is clear, no.
So it's a clear cut no. Will that be a clear cut no in next couple of years? The answer is, I think no, but again, it's debatable. While very clearly there are the market leaders, or they are the early initiators in the market. There are some banks who are doing really well. At the same time, I see a lot of banks still holding on everything close to their chest and believe that that's the way to go. So I think the transformation has started, and it's going to be a lengthy process. It's not going to be a quick kill for anybody.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, people are used to this whole model of keeping it close to themselves, right? I mean, it's not really easy to let it go. Yeah. That it'll take the time. But thankfully, the journey has started. Very true. Good. So I think we might also be running out of time, but one quick thing is, what's your suggestion to the SMEs, the Indian SMEs, if they want to access more global opportunities?
I think first of all, clear-cut statement from my side. I don't think I have anything to teach them that they are the pillars of our Indian economy. They know what to do. All we can do is maybe give them pointers, and they are smart enough to take them and scale this business.
Absolutely.
So 3-4 pointers from my side from what we have learned from SMBs all across the globe. One, very clearly spend a lot of time in identifying the right market, which means that there has to be a product and a customer match. Multiple ways to do it. You can go to a marketplace, you can do more research, you can visit trade fairs to figure that out. Second is something which COVID accelerated. Very clearly establish an online presence. It's super duper important. I think it's become important even in domestic business. It's more important in global because they don't know you. They don't know where your office is and what the name of the lane is. So it's very, very important. Third is very clearly ensure that you have a great payment, solve the payment mechanism, whether it's going to be through banks, it's going to be through payment players like us, whatever suits you, please choose wisely. And last but not the least is ensure that you understand the compliance bit of it. What are the taxes? What are the regulations? If you go to US, what's the sales tax obligation? In Europe, what's the VAT obligation? And last but not, I think this is one which our SMEs don't do that well on is marketing and selling strategies. I think you really need, some of the people in West are doing better than us, and that's where we really, really need to focus on in terms of selling us well, marketing us well. Let's spend money there.
Sure.
More or less from my side.
Sure. Thank you, Gaurav. I think that's very useful. You're right. I think we are sometimes a little more guarded in our approach, right? So I think probably that's the reason why we are really not aggressive on some of these strategies, and maybe it's time we actually did that to access global markets. Very rightful on the payment piece. Yes, actually the payment has to be very seamless, and compliance is a critical thing. I mean, as you go global, I think the requirements of each and every geography keeps changing. So it's extremely critical that we are kind of, aligned to those. You cannot have a one shoe fits all there. Absolutely true. So I think in conclusion, I would probably, my single one-liner to derive from this discussion from you is, I think the golden age for SMEs is on the way and yet to come, and we have and we really see a real growth path there. So I completely great. I think Gaurav, if you want to kind of add any one quick input before we kind of close, we have.
I just want to thank you and NASCOM for giving us this opportunity, and hopefully we'll be able to make the difference to SMEs in this country.
Absolutely, we look forward to that. Thank you very much, Gaurav. Thank you for the time. And I hope all of you enjoyed this discussion. Thank you.